I'm doing what I'm supposed to be doing. Like, this is what I'm supposed to be doing, helping people help themselves develop. And the restaurant space is an incredible space to do that.
Well, hey, you make him happy. He's got another rich friend that wants to be happy too.
You don't necessarily hire great teams. You hire great people and you build great teams.
You need people that look and view challenges as exciting.
You can't manage that. You're not going to be successful here.
Ladies and gentlemen, we are here today with Jamey Shirah of Riverside Restaurant Group. He is a restaurateur extraordinaire, and he's going to teach us how to make money, how to build our business, how to build our people, and just how to kick ass, because we're going to talk a little jujitsu too. Thanks, Jamey, for joining us.
Thank you. That's quite a lead in there. But yeah, appreciate you having me on. Thank you.
So, Jamey, you run a kind of a multifaceted, well, you have a multifaceted career. And would you mind telling a little bit of people about your background of how you came to the position you're in, and kind of where you developed and what your motivations are?
Yeah. So started in South Georgia, grew up on a farm in the middle of nowhere. And we had, growing up on a farm, you kind of, you're self-made, right? And so my family was always somewhat of an entrepreneur based family. And my father, being a farmer in the late 80s and 90s was a really, really tough time, kind of similar to what a lot are facing now. And in order to kind of, make ends meet and do a little better, he was, loved to go quail hunting and would take people quail hunting. And that turned into, friends of friends and friends and friends of friends, and people started paying him. And then he realized that he could make a business out of it, and eventually built that into a kind of a world-class hunting destination in South Georgia. And we were Orvis endorsed wing shooting lodge, one of the first in the US. Had a, classically French trained chef from
Nice.
from Germany. He kind of took all my grandmother's recipes and turned them into fine dining and white tablecloth and lodge and all that. So kind of grew up in the hospitality industry. When I graduated high school, I went to the University of Georgia, where I lost my Hope Scholarship first semester. And my dad was basically like, well, I called it. I mean, I'll never forget it. I called him and told him that. And growing up in a family like I did, like disappointing, dad was a really bad thing. And I knew he was going to be super disappointed. And he kind of surprised me the way he responded. He's like, well, I mean, you're an adult, so good luck. And I was like, what do you mean good luck? He was like, well, I mean, what are you going to do? How are you going to pay for it? And I was kind of like, I don't really know. I guess, he's like, well, you can come back and work here. You can work on the farm, make some money and save up and go back. Or, you can just get a job and figure out how to pay for it. And so, I'd worked my whole life. I mean, since I was little, been driving tractors at like, sub 10 years old and doing all that stuff. So it's kind of natural. I wanted extra money anyway, so I was already kind of thinking about how to make a little extra cash. And it seemed to me in school, the bartending was the fastest way to make money. What I didn't know is that you don't start off bartending. Just like any organization, you start at the bottom, which is the trash guy. And college game days in Athens is a pretty raucous time. And so there was quite a bit of trash to clean up, and a bunch of other nasty stuff that you have to do to kind of work that position. And slowly work my way up, started working security, working the door, then bartending.
Taking out different trash.
But yeah, exactly. Yeah. We had quite a few scrambles, I'll say, in those days, back when that was still a big thing. But worked my way up to bartending and managing, and then went to another place. It was a little bit older crowd. They had a couple units, and then those guys became our business partners when we opened up our first bar, which I opened in 2010. Right after kind of the collapse in Buckhead in this giant space. And, everybody said, well, you're an idiot. Like, there's no way that's going to work. And looking back on it, I probably would have said the same thing, but I think, we didn't have the curse of knowledge at that point. We were just young and dumb and excited. And I think with, a lot of gumption and dedication and focus, you can do way more than you ever anticipated. So that's
sometimes it's good to not know what you're doing is practically impossible.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
So it sounds like that you developed a lot of skills and growing up in rural America that helped you learn about tenacity and sticking with it. And then you got into a business, which is a business that I've been in myself, and that's the restaurant business, which has so many moving pieces. And it is very much like a dairy farm, right? There's no real vacations. You're only as good as the last plate that came out. And now with the review system, you get you have to fight this monstrosity of that. People that are happy generally don't write reviews, but someone whose food was 5 minutes late and on a busy night, they're happy to write. They're happy to write up a negative review. Did what kind of headwinds did you face when you were getting that business started, and what did you do to overcome them?
Yeah, I mean, all of them. I mean, multiple times in every business, you face all of them every time. And I think what you learn as you get a little bit more mature in business is, look, these set of problems are everyone's problems. Like they happen to everyone. They're not just you. No one's getting singled out. And being super resourceful, super gritty, two of our main core values in our company, are paramount to success in anything. But yeah, I mean, you unfortunately kind of touched on something there that restaurants face a lot of, and in all businesses now that have Google profiles. For some reason, restaurants, I guess it's always been based on reviews. Back it used to be like the one or two food reviewers in your major city, and that's what people hung their opinion on your business of. But like, we always look at the aggregate, right? We look at, I think any business position, you have to be able to look at things through a microscope and then through a telescope, right? So you have to zoom way in and then you have to zoom way out, and zoom way in and zoom way out. Because you get a bad review, right? That doesn't reflect your business, right? It reflects a specific incident within your business. And so you have to like really drill down, and then we figure out who that person was and figure out what table they were and figure out what server they were. We pull their check up, and then you have to go in and do your investigation, and then reach back out to that customer and talk to them. And because even bad reviews, like ones that you're obviously like are just not good people leaving, legitimate reviews, there's still some grain of truth in there, right? And in life, in business, it's not really about the product you sell, but it's how you make people feel while you do that. And so if we did something that made someone mad enough that they would get on a review site and leave a bad review, like, even if it like doesn't warrant that review in our eyes, like they felt mad enough to get pissed off enough to write that. So like we still have to, take that into consideration, figure out what can we do better, figure out, the system that we need to, fix or change or update. But yeah, it's, unfortunately there's the legitimate bad reviews, which those are the ones that you really want because you need them to get better. And then there's the illegitimate ones, whether it's competition, whether it's, somebody that got terminated, and Google
15 guys in India. Yeah.
And Google doesn't do a really good job of managing that, which is really ridiculous because they track everything that you do, and they know everywhere that you've been. And you shouldn't be able to leave a review of a business that you haven't physically walked inside of, I guess. I mean, I guess you did online business with them, but for our restaurant specifically. But yeah, you get people that don't pay attention to the rules, people don't pay attention to, our standards and procedures, and they get mad and it's our fault. And, you just kind of deal with that.
Well, I think it is. I don't think that the average consumer of Google data, when they look at those reviews, realize that you serve thousands of people, right? And your business, it's busy for a reason. People are coming there because you are satisfying the needs and desires of lots of people. And then you get angry people. Sometimes it's over things that are valid. And other times, like you said, you're just doing you just have to do a postmortem on managing the perception of a guy that had a bad time.
Yeah.
And,
Sure.
but I really do wish that the public understood when you're serving thousands of people and you got a 4.7 or something up there, how hard that is to do. And then you get that one review that's the most recent review that says 2 stars, 2 stars, my margarita was watered down.
Yeah, I think another big problem that's with the review system is that people are, because of society, the way that we're like all or nothing now, it's either 1 star or 5 star. And that's just not.
Yeah, it's
like,
binary.
That's not how, like, is it really the worst meal that you've ever had? Because that seems a little bit excessive, maybe, maybe not, but like, it's like, why are you, if it's, we got a review the other night. Somebody left a 1 star review. Food was great. Service was great. Ambiance was great. Named the server. They did a great job. Food was delicious, hot and all that. But we couldn't believe that we had to pay $5 for valet. 1 star.
Oh, well, maybe they look at it like maybe they look at it like I look at women, where I don't have that 10 system. I don't say she's an 8 or a 6. I'm on 0s and 1s too. It's yeses or nos. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I just, it's one of those things that, you're just sitting there going, you have to read through, right? You have to like kind of pay attention to what they're saying and like actually try to dissect, which is a whole nother like
reading into their mind. Well,
yeah,
something else. Yeah. Something that you did that you said to me when we talked on the phone that I really liked, as obviously you've had a lot of success and you're in the restaurant industry is possibly the most competitive industry you're going to find. And you've been hammering it out and doing it well. But you talked about the 4 C's that you have to have in your personnel. And I thought this was great. And I thought that if you were handing this out to people, you were doing them a favor and they need to keep it close to their chest, because this is wonderful.
Yeah. And I think this is kind of a guide for life too. Not just who you hire, but this is so funnily timely. I had a call with someone earlier who was trying to somewhat persuade me to change the way that we kind of looked at our hiring process. And it served us incredibly well for, specifically this newest version, which we've had for basically since COVID. And, my job as a CEO, your job as the leader of whatever unit you're a leader of, is to have the best team. That should be the number one goal, because if you have the best team, everything else kind of takes care of itself. So when we're looking at hiring a team, we're looking at hiring management team, hourly staff, front house, back of the house, however you want to look at it. We look at 4 things, and we call them the 4 C's. And the first thing that we look at is their character, right? Do they align with our values? Because if they don't, nothing else matters, like at all. And again, whether that's a significant other that you're looking for, whether that's friends that you hang out with, like if you don't have character alignment, you're probably not gonna end up in a good position with that person. The second thing we look at is chemistry, right? And we judge that by having in-person interviews. Are they quick to smile? Can they take a joke, make a joke? Like, do they just seem pleasant to be around? Some people just, you're kind of around them and you feel a little bit uncomfortable because you're like, something is off. Like they're not, I don't feel comfortable talking to this person. Well, in a business that we have to be super warm with people all the time, especially when they're not being warm with us, if you can't manage that, you're not going to be successful here. So they got to have good chemistry, right? They got to be able to communicate with your team members. And often part of our interview process is we walk them around, we introduce them to people, and then we just kind of stand back. People on our team and those other individuals are like, oh, hey, hey, Jamey, good to meet you. How are you? And if they're like awkward and like, weird, like can't carry on the conversation, then we're like, this person's not going to work out. The next thing we look at is their capacity, right? So where are they? Where do we think they can go, right? You look at that based on where they've been, right? You look at their character and you look at what do they want in life, and a lot of the times in our interviews, we ask some very deep questions that a lot of people have literally never thought about. These are 30, 40, 50-year-old people. And you're like, yeah, what do you want in life? I don't know. And it's like, what do you like? What do you mean you don't know? Like, what kind of income do you want to have? Like, is there like a car that you want? Like, where do you want to live? Like, do you want kids? Do you not want kids? You want this? You want that? And so trying to understand like where they are and where they can go, because very rarely do you hire the person exactly as you want them to be in your organization, right? You don't necessarily hire great teams. You hire great people and you build great teams. And so where can they go? What's their capacity? And then the last thing that we look at, unless it is a, high level job, is their competency. Like what proficiency level are they at? Like, I'm not going to hire someone that's never been the manager to be a GM of a $10 million business, right? You've got to have been at least an AGM for at least 2 years for us to consider you for that. But anything kind of below management level, I don't care if you've ever worked in a restaurant or not. If you have the right character, you have the right chemistry, and you have the right capacity, and you got a good head on your shoulders, and you're warm, you're inviting, you communicate really well, I can teach you how to do anything. There's nothing in a
Yeah.
restaurant that I can't teach you how to do. And that's most jobs. I mean, most jobs you can teach someone how to do pretty much any level, especially with time and with development plans and quarterly one-to-ones like we do and all that. I mean, uh, most stuff isn't rocket science. It's like
No, but you also just want people. You want to. If you're hiring management people, you need problem solvers,
yeah,
right?
100%.
You need the guy that whenever his, the technical engineer brother-in-law ain't around, that he can that he's willing to sit down and put the toys together. It's it's you
100%.
need people that look and view challenges as exciting. Well, they don't
Yeah.
get perturbed by it. And I think you and I talked before we get a lot of people that have backgrounds in farm work, that they're just used to being out there on their own and having to make do. And those guys are great hires.
Yeah. Well, you and I talked about that, and you kind of mentioned it before I went off on that diatribe. Like, when you're on a farm, like, you've got all these tools, right? You've got like heavy duty equipment, machinery, welders, cutters, like presses. And, when you're 12 or 13 or 14 years old and you break something on a piece of equipment that is going to cost a lot of money to fix, and your dad's gone for the day, and he's going to come back and that shit better be fixed, you
Yeah.
figure it out, and most of my life, I think most anything that I've done that I've been successful in, I would attribute a lot of that success to kind of that resourcefulness, kind of just figuring it out. Like, there's like, like, businesses don't come with handbooks. I mean,
No.
they're all different, and people are all different, and products are all different, and your processes are all different. And when we look at those three P's, is what we call them, like, you just got to figure out how to, there's a Danny Myers, one of the greatest restaurateurs of all time, and he talks about, collecting the dots and then connecting the dots. Like, when I talk to my either salespeople, or I talk to, people that are working in the restaurant, like, you're not there just to have a kind of two-way conversation, right? You've got to be looking around the table, trying to understand what's not being said, what's the nonverbal cues. It's like very simple. When I walk in a dining room, if I see somebody, we call it peacocking. Obviously they need something, right? So don't wait. Like, if it's not your table, but you're just standing there and you see that, immediately run to that table. Like, run to that problem and solve it and figure out what do they need. It may just be they dropped their fork. They need another fork. That maybe, they forgot to order something or whatever. But just paying attention, being resourceful, connecting those dots that's kind of a life thing.
Yeah. Yeah. So one of the things that you were asking your employees, and I want to ask of you, man. So you've been grinding out, and you have the successful history in your industry, and you get to a point, you're in the middle of life like me, and you got some jingle in your pocket, and you probably could work way less than you do and do fine. What is it? What is it that you want out of life, and what is it that motivates you?
What I want out of life is, I want to impact as many people as I possibly can. That is like the most important thing to me. When you and I talked earlier, I was insanely fortunate to grow up with a dad that is, I mean, the best dad I've ever had, right?
Yeah.
A great grandfather, a great uncle, a great brother, a great football coach, some great high school teachers, people that really poured into me and mentored me and taught me and guided me through that development from, a kid to a teenager to an adult. And a lot of people don't get that mentorship. There's
No.
a guy here in Atlanta, Steve Cesari, that we just randomly ran into one time, my brother and I, and did some work with us on just kind of development, like personal development and all that. And it's always been a huge, important piece to me is personal development. But it's a big world out there for that. And a lot of people have no idea where to start. And a lot of people have tons of limiting beliefs on themselves and don't think that they deserve or could get anything better than what they've seen growing up. And that was always a huge driver for me is try to be a better parent than my parents were. Try to be, and they were great parents, but try to be better than that, right? I mean, I'm probably, because I'm hyper fucking competitive and I just like, the best is not the best. It's like not good enough. It's like, how do I be a better parent? How do I, improve my fighting position, right? Going to jujitsu, it's like, how do I not give up conquered ground and always make that incremental process better every day? But I want to impact people as many people as I can. I mean, I've been doing this long enough now and been working in people heavy industries my whole career, where I have seen so many people start off in the bottom of my organizations that are, big real estate guys now. They're big lawyers. They're, they own their own restaurants. They've gone from someone washing dishes to a bar manager at a Michelin star restaurant. And that gets me so fired up, like, because, I didn't do that for them, but I definitely am part of that story, and seeing people successful that I've been able to interact with and coach and teach there's nothing cooler than that. I mean, the girl that I hired to do all of my marketing has an insanely, prosperous and growing marketing group here in Atlanta. She worked for me for probably 4 or 5 years, and I sat down with her one day and I was like, you know what, I'm going to have to fire you. You got to go do your own thing. You're too talented. You're too talented to do this for me here in these concepts. You have an insane eye. You're one of the most creative people I've ever met. You're fired, go do your own thing. And it took her about 2 years. She figured it out. She got it. She was all pissed off and all that in the moment. And then sends me a text like a year later, like, thank you so much. Like, you pushed me out of the nest and gave me a lot of the, coaching and teaching in the background to get me, where I need to be. So that's huge.
But, and when you talk about like your friends and people that you influenced and then they start doing well in an industry you're in, right? Some people look at that as like an added competition or something like that. But in life, you have to count your friends' good fortune as a blessing for yourself. And when I really feel like results are addictive, training, learn in jujitsu, winning, results are winning, are addictive. Even in business, when your business starts improving, you want to see more of that. And I get a similar by proxy experience when I see my friends do well. My mom lost 60 pounds over the last year and is exercising every day for the first, at like almost 70 years old. So that motivates me. I mean, I've been training for 27 years. And when I see people progress like that, that makes me get off my butt when I don't want to go to the gym. Yeah. And so you really got to draw those energy sources where you can, and use that positivity to propel you forward and create inertia. You want inertia in your existence and those around you. And it's really important, I think, when you're selecting friends and selecting people, if they're going to be at a peer level, they need to be equal to or greater than you. And I've found that to be a very important way to decide, is this person or is this partner, is this spouse, is that right for me? Yep. And not to take it away from you, I do want to follow up with this question. So do you find that your intrinsic motivation, does that come from you just like working with great people? you want those successes, or is it just that you're just one of those hard-nosed competitors and you're gonna and you'll pound sand until the world opens up to win?
I think both. I think it takes both. Early on, it's definitely just about competitiveness. I want to be the baddest dude there. I want to be the best. And then as you kind of mature a little bit, to your point, you realize that, if you want to go fast, go alone. If you want to go far, go together. And the more people that you can bring into your umbrella and under your roof, the farther that you can go with a better team. And actually the more fun it is. Yeah, I mean, I think that, going back to like impacting people, like if I can bring 8 people 3 or 4 years ago, and then we have 14 people that are part of like this core group that we're working with. It really drives me when to your point. It's so funny. It's another weird parallel. My dad's lost like 40 pounds in the last
Yeah,
3 or 4 months. Was like every old person from South Georgia that I grew up around was like
the
obese.
food was great.
Yeah, food's fantastic, and exercise doesn't exist. And it's been miraculous. And now, so I get like 2 phone calls a week, where he wants to talk about like what he's doing, and I'm like, damn, man, I feel like I think I'm gaining some weight. I gotta go back to the gym. I gotta get going. And to your point, like within that community, like the jiu-jitsu community, for example, right? I've got, I don't know, 8, 10 people that I talk to regularly, that I roll with regularly, that like I miss class. I'm getting 3 or 4 text messages. Hey man, where you at?
It's like AA.
Yeah, they're like, hey man, where you at? And I'm like, oh, I'm working, blah, 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 blah. They're okay, well, you gonna be there
Yeah.
Friday? I'm like, yeah, I'll be there Friday, and you're like committed to that. The same thing goes in my work life. Like, when people hit numbers and hit new highs and new launches and stuff, we're cheering and cheering and cheering. And when they don't, we're like, hey man, what are you doing? Like, what is
Yeah.
this shit? Like you blew this up, and having that, another one of our core values, rapport with your people, so that it's not just about like the numbers though, right? It's about who they are. It's about their family. It's about their development. It's about, how can I help them continue to progress in their life? And the more people that you interact with in that way, and, one of my biggest jobs as a CEO is to generate energy, right? I've got to be on it. Right. And so like, I have to be really careful when I'm in my stores and stuff. Like, so for example, I was in Birmingham, I drive over there. I'm up at like 6:30 here in Atlanta. I drive over there. I work, till 12:30 there. So that's 1:30 our time, go to bed, got to be up for a 9 Eastern call, which is an 8 a.m. call. I got to get a little workout in before that. Then I go in and work a shift the whole day. I get home last night at 1 a.m. our time. I've got a 9 a.m. meeting here with the team. Like, and I can't be like, oh, I'm tired. I got to be on their ass and on that ass, and not in like a negative way, but just like driving the ball, like pushing the ball, like where we at with this, where we at with that, where we at with this. And I would say that probably the greatest example of that I have in my life, which is incredibly fortunate for me, is my brother. Because that dude he is a sledgehammer.
That's great.
Prime example. We opened Tuesday night. Great opening, incredibly successful, awesome service, everything. I get a phone call from him Wednesday morning after my 9 o'clock call. Well, he called me during that because he only calls when I'm on phone calls. Called me just like 30 minutes, 20 minutes ago, right when we started this. He calls me I call him back. Hey, how'd everything go? How was service? How are people, blah, 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 little pleasantries. And he's like, well, I just got off the phone with with one of these realtors here. Like, I'm looking for this location here in Atlanta. And I'm just like, dude, like, holy shit, man. Like, I opened the location last night. Like,
Yeah.
give me a week, but then, it's like, I'm like, you're right. I mean, our organization is caught between growth phases, where we don't have enough capital or enough cash flow to get to that next level. So you have to open that next unit So then you can bring on a bunch of support at a corporate level. So then you can really perform at a super high level. And that's growth problems that any company has. You have a lot of cash flow and you're growing, but you need more people to grow more. And you have this kind of chicken and the egg thing going on. And so, I was just like, bro, give me
He's laying
a week.
tracks.
Like, give me a week. He's like, no, we got a meeting, so I'm grateful to have him.
Laying tracks to the next station and not looking back, man. Yep. That's cool. Hey, let me ask you this. So, if you don't mind talking about this, I would imagine that when you're opening these types of locations and that kind of build out and things like that, it's a capital intensive environment. Do you guys finance things through bank debt, or how do you guys do this?
So, multiple ways. So we use a lot of our money. We use bank debt, and we raise capital from outside investors. And we've gotten to a point now where we have an insanely awesome investor base. We've got the right people, and it's so much easier when you have the right people, and so much better when you have the right people. And they are everybody that basically invests with us at this point. It's like, hey, if I invest in this deal, like I want first right, for the next deal. Like I want to make sure that I'm like, bro, if I don't have to ever call a new investor again, I will be thrilled. So it's all kinds. We are very close to a position in our company where we won't need bank debt anymore. And in fact, I think with coupling tenant improvement dollars, which we would have on our next deal, and we'll be able to, hopefully leverage our success and drive a better deal for ourselves, because we should be in a much higher, desired position. We may not have to use bank debt at all in the next deal, which would be fantastic.
Well, I hope so, because I like the liberation of no bank, because you got the cost of capital, then you got the cost of your hairline to manage that relationship, because the guy, the real friendly guy at the bank or at the big banks like we use, he sells you the money, but he's not the one that manages the account the same way, right? You're going to hear from somebody else, and he's not as nice, and he wants this report and that report, and they will run you to death just so long as the bank examiners aren't on their butt. So yeah, there's a beauty in being free from that. And then, if you got a good personality in your investment group, and the cost of capital isn't too burdensome, you can really move fast. Yeah. And once you treat them right, like I always thought this was fascinating to me, is my whole life I'm building on repeatable business, right? That's what I want, repeatable business. So, why do so many people try to fuck the investors in the short term, or screw them, and then they got to go out and find someone else to screw instead of making that guy happy, and then you only got to make one phone call? Yeah, I find that so fascinating that people lose the forest for the trees, and miss out on these opportunities to grow their network. And hey, you make him happy, he's got another rich friend that wants to be happy too.
Yeah. I think probably in a restaurant space specifically, but I mean, I don't know. You look at it; it's everywhere now. This may come off a little odd, but there are too many things out there. There's too many things. There's too many restaurants that don't know what they're doing. There's too many new clothing companies that everybody has a bright idea. You have all these people that were visited by the idea fairy, I feel like, during COVID, and they convinced a bunch of people to give them a bunch of money, but they didn't really have a clear plan. They had no experience doing it. And now you have all this excess competition of people that don't know what they're doing. And it's caused this fragmentation that I think, you're already seeing tons of things closing and stuff like that. But I think, to your question, I think people get out over their skis. They don't really know what they're doing. A lot of restaurants don't actually know their finances, and they see top line sales, and then they get to the end of the year and they're like, how did we lose all this money? And it's like, you don't know your numbers. Like, sales don't mean shit if you don't manage your cost. And people make bad deals. People make bad rent deals. Your rent needs to be less than 8% of your gross. And people were at 8, 9, 10, 12, 15% because it's a prime location. They think location, location, location. If I get this, everything will be okay. They have a dumb idea. I mean, look, if you open a 10-seat restaurant and it's $1,000 a person, and you put that in a neighborhood that doesn't have 10 people that can afford to eat there, what do you think is going to happen?
Yeah.
Right? And that happens all the time. Right. And I'm speaking just to my industry, but it happens all over the place all the time in all these different industries. I mean, it's like growing up, there was Realtree and there was Mossy Oak. And then there was like Sitka, and then there was, a couple of other companies.
Yeah, everybody.
And now there's like, there's hundreds of camel, and they're like, they all look badass too, but it's like,
I think hunting's might be, I think the hunting industry, of which you and I probably have thrown a lot of money into over the years. And, we spent all our money on hunting and fishing, and the rest we just wasted. That industry, every rural guy, every person that has an outdoor interest in chasing animals wants to be in that industry. Yeah. And my brother's been in it for 30 years, and it comes in various means. Some people, they want to build the guns. Other people want to do the camo. Tons of guys want to guide, fish, and outfit. And the amount of people that I see twice at a hunting convention is fewer and fewer.
Yeah. Look, man, I'm an entrepreneur, like, through and through. Everything I've done, I've actually never held a job for something I didn't hold an interest in after I graduated college. It is insanely hard. It is, what does it take? Everything you got. That's all it takes. Everything that you got, everything that you have, the amount of sacrifice that you have to make, with time, with your family, with your financial expenditures, with, everything. It sucks everything. And if you don't have a damn good foundation of how to do what you're doing, if you don't have a damn good 2 to 3 people around you that can help support you, and if you don't have a damn good, situation at home or whatever you have going on there, like, it's almost impossible. I mean, America is the land of opportunity, and if there's anywhere you can make it, it's here. But that don't mean it's easy. It is hard. But I do think that it's getting easier, right? And not because of technology or not because of whatever, but because of that previous statement about all these companies that are all over the place. There's a whole bunch of people doing shit halfway. And if you just really focus on what your competitive advantage is, and you really focus on what you're good at, and you really execute at a really high level consistently in whatever that thing it is, you can rise above everyone else fairly quickly. We see it in the restaurant space all the time. There's places that open up, they have all this fanfare, they do a great job out of the gate, and then they just kind of fall off the ledge, and quality of product goes down, quality of service goes down, space gets beat up, it doesn't get repaired and maintained, and you just fall behind.
Yeah. Well, those businesses are like crying babies, and you get to a point where, if you're lucky, they grow up and they get a little bit more mature. And it's interesting. I see a lot of parallels in parenting and just what it's like animal husbandry or whatever you want to call this, about caretaking and business, and that's involvement. I mean, involvement. Be close, right? And then they've done these studies. The number one determining factor of your children's outcome is who his reference group is growing up, which is, who did he grow up around? And what was their income level, and what were the jobs of their parents? Yeah. If that's the same for us. Yeah, who are we learning from? Who are we being influenced by? Who is our network, right? And so you really have to. if you don't have good people around you as a support system and as your hires, it's going to be really difficult. You can do it. There's a lot of gonzo badasses that have pulled themselves out of the mud, but for every one of them, there's 100 guys that fell in it face first. Yep. So yeah, you got to leverage. Hey, and one of the things I want to ask you is, I know that your career is not just isolated to the restaurant business. You're involved in real estate. You have a lot of other things that you do. But are you the kind of guy that could ever just enjoy the passive income? I mean, could you be a mailbox guy, or is that not in your DNA?
I don't ever like to say no to things I haven't tried before. But yeah, I mean, I think I could be cool for like a couple months and then I would go crazy. I mean, my wife will laugh when she listens to this. I have a horrible disease of hobby creep, and like I've got, so much shit that I have a skateboard out in my garage that arrived from Amazon not long ago. My wife's like, why? And I was like, well, I used to skateboard and I think it's pretty cool. And, you know, I got a daughter, so I want to teach her how to skateboard. She's like, why? I'm like, I don't know. I mean, I'm a paragliding pilot. I do jujitsu. I hunt, I fish, I travel, and that, you know, aside from doing restaurants, which takes, you know, all of your time. I mean, whether I'm working or what, I'm always doing something. I mean, I think one of the biggest things that I've actually learned, you know, is that stress plus rest equals growth. You can't just burn the candle at both ends and the middle for an extended period of time. You can do it. You can do it short term. I'm in one of those phases right now since about November, when we opened the restaurant in November, and then we just opened another one. Last 6 months has been, I just threw the candle in fucking fire. Like we're just melting it. You know, we got to get a new candle. But I know that in the next, you know, month or two, things will slow down. It will be summer, which is generally a slower time in the restaurant business. Take a little bit of time to rest, find those restful periods through my day, through my week, through my month, through my quarter, and through my year. But yeah, I mean, you know, you said this earlier about growing up on a farm and like just kind of figuring shit out. I'm just naturally kind of a tinkerer. Like you
want to be plugged in tinkering. Yeah. It sounds like you like risk too, man, because like, you know, the skateboard is kind of like teetering on the edge of the orthopedic surgeon's lobby. Now the paragliding, that's different. That's like, you know, like I want to be buried, but like at a funeral, you know, not at a paragliding crash, you know, so that's a whole nother level.
Yeah. I mean, I think I do like risk. I think risk is what makes life exciting. I mean, like I have had a fear in my life, ever since I was a kid, of not experiencing the world. I'm insanely curious.
Wanderlust.
And like, yeah, big time. And like, you know, opposites attract. My wife's like the opposite. Like she's a homebody. She likes her like routine there on that. Not to say she doesn't love to travel and we have a fun and all that, but like I'm just constantly seeking that next thing. And I think that curiosity comes from being a kid that was allowed to just go to the farm like at, you know, 10 years old. I was able to get on the four-wheeler myself, drive it across the field behind the house, you know, going way too fast, doing donuts and driving on two wheels and crazy shit like that. And, you know, going up in our shop and, you know, if nobody was there working on something, I'm like cutting iron with a torch and like welding shit together and making my own knife with a, you know, 10,000 pound press, you know, and an angle grinder, and like, you know, just doing shit that you do on a farm, like getting the rods, going down to the fishing hole, like catching fish, like cooking them for myself, like, you know, building deer stands, building tree houses. Like my grandfather was a carpenter, he was a plumber, he's an electrician, he was a sheriff, he owned the newspaper, like all this stuff, like all these careers he had, same thing. I mean, he was the guy that if you went to visit him, you didn't go to his house. You went out to the shop behind his house or whatever field he was in. And if you wanted to talk to him, you had to walk alongside him as he was doing whatever he was doing. Like he didn't have meetings. Like he
This
was
is like the Benjamin Franklin and Thomas Jefferson, man. Like, you know, like what did he have? Like one of the largest bug collections at the time. You know, he just categorizing stuff, inventing electricity and shit like that.
Yeah.
No, that's fun, man. Like, I always, I had real bad hobby creep myself. I mean, I got really into spearfishing and free diving, tons, you know, jujitsu, really was into yoga, tons of weightlifting and want to lift heavier weight and things like that. The worst ever was handstands. That was the dumbest one that I like, because I was in yoga and I was out in Basalt, Colorado, and I go in there and it's like smoking hot chicks, right? Smoking like level 10 wealthy Aspen ladies, right? Yeah. And then like some old, like gray hair chested Jewish guys in there. And the teacher, and I'd been to like, I don't know, 5 yoga classes in my life. And the teacher goes, all right. Yeah, and the teacher goes, now everyone come up in a handstand. She said it like you say pass the salt at the dinner table, like it's just normal. And everybody but me went up in that handstand. And my ego couldn't stand it. And I spent a year like learning how to do it. And I got it down. But hell, I weighed 230 pounds and I was jacked. So like 3-4 years after that, my rotator cuffs, they said they kind of tapped out on it. Yeah. But I get what you're seeing, but you're saying about that. But I wish that I could live 1,000 lives, man. Yeah, I really do. You know, what I want out of life now is different because I felt like I've done so much of that where you're like going through life, turning over rocks, seeing what's under it. And then you get to a point where you're like, okay, I've got these 5 rocks that are important to me, right? So now what I'm asking for is, God, please show me the path forward that pleases you. Show me the path forward that's good for my family. And I think that I'm hoping that the opportunities reveal themselves in a way that will determine my next interest in whatever that may be.
They will. If you open your eyes and you open your ears to what God's trying to lead you to do, it's amazing what kind of appears there. You know, I grew up Baptist in the South, and
me too.
You know, we named our company Revival for that reason, because we think that there needs to be a pretty big revival in the hospitality industry. We have I consider what I do is not the restaurant industry. It's not the service industry. It is the hospitality industry. Right. And there's a lot of service industry restaurants out there, and you walk in and you know, immediately you're like, man, these people don't give a shit, you know? And for us, you know, we want to be one of the driving groups behind that revitalization as it pertains to hospitality. But yeah, I mean, you know, the old story of the prodigal son, you know, you go out, raise hell, and you kind of come back and you grow up a little bit and you start, you know, really thinking about, you know, when you're young, you're invincible, right? You're not worried about anything. You driving, you know, too fast, raising hell. And then you kind of start to build something, and then you realize there's people that rely on you. Right. I mean, I now have, I don't actually know the number, probably close to 400 employees now. And I have like 30 something managers that are professionals, that this is their career, and their kids depend on me to make the right decisions. Right. And I do not take that lightly. Right. That is an incredibly powerful motivator. Right. When you think of it in that regard.
Absolutely. You got to keep reminding yourself too. It's like they're there. Those families are there, and this is real.
Yeah, for sure. And so, you know, I've I think one of the key things too, for me is staying humble, you know, and, you know, humility is one of the greatest things that I think we can have. And when we look for our people, you know, we want all of them to be humble, hungry, and smart, people that really want to grow and develop, that know how to figure things out, but then stay humble when they do. And, you know, for me, you know, my journey on the whole Christian side of things has come back full circle like it does for so many people. And I have a daughter now, and like getting her involved in that. I literally had this thought process that come through my head the other day. I took her to church. My wife wasn't feeling well. I took her to church by myself for the first time, and she sat there and didn't say a word. She's 2.5. Like, it was the
Yeah.
most unbelievable for like 40 minutes. And finally I was like,
Yeah.
I need to go potty, and I'm like, oh, she did so good. Like, let's get out of here. And then I'm like driving to lunch, and I'm like thinking to myself, like, man, how do I like set this thing up to like be right for her? Like, how do I,
Yeah.
and if we have another kid, and then, my brother and his family, and all the people that work, and then you just start thinking about that, and the weight of that kind of like sits on you for a minute. And then you just have to remember that, like, hey man, I just gotta open my hands and turn it over to God and do what I'm supposed to do. You can't be people that say, oh, I'm not worried, God's gonna take care of me. No, that's not how it works,
Meet
in
him
my
in the
opinion.
middle.
Yeah, you got to work your
Well,
ass off and use the tools that he gave you to get what you want in life.
well, when you have those kids, man. When I had my daughter, and I prayed for a daughter first, just I thought I wanted a boy just as bad, but I wanted a daughter first. And I listened to Howard Stern from the time I got a car until my daughter came. Right,
Yeah.
so like 15 years or something. And Howard Stern was always like, he'd get women up there and like paint targets on their butt and and just completely exploit them. And and I listened to that crap every day. The second I had a daughter, I was listening to a broadcast that he was putting on, and he had some chicks up there, and he was like, there was like a game called It's Just Wrong, where the dad would ask the dad trivia questions. And if if he got it wrong, he had to take an article of clothing off his daughter. That was the last time I listened to Howard Stern. I was like, what am I been listening to this garbage my whole life? Like, it was ridiculous. And as I make that point, the kids make you better. And, and you got one now, and I've got two, and my biggest regret now that they're teenagers is that I don't have more.
Yeah.
I wish if you're really into parenting, and I tell you what, I encourage everybody, there's nothing more satisfying than watching your kids develop and results in your kids and your impact, your being available to them and your influence on them. When you see that come to fruition and it's real, like my son, he's a jiu-jitsu world champion. He speaks Chinese, he speaks Spanish, and he speaks them well. And he works hard, and he's getting independent. I don't have to be on his butt. Like, seeing that, like, is just like, oh my gosh, I am so blessed. And you start realizing this guy's going to make it on his own. Yeah. It is a wild it is a wild feeling, And so, I encourage you, man.
I'm a little bit behind you on that. And it's really funny because, you're just so scared when you have your first kid. Like, oh my God, they don't come with owner's manuals either, by the way. And so you're just like, what the hell am I going to do? And then it was about 6 months for me. I waited to have kids, waited to get married. And I'm like, why the hell did I not start this sooner?
Yeah. And now you're digging it.
This is the greatest. It's the hardest, but it's the greatest thing that I've ever done. And so we're hoping to welcome another kid. And I always wanted 3. We'll see what it feels like after the second one. My wife always wanted 2. So, but yeah, it's she's got enough personality now where some of my mannerisms and my wife's are rubbing off on her, and yeah, it's that I think a lot of people in society, and this was me too for a while, just lack some purpose. And what you realize, I think, is that when you kind of find it, is that you actually have to find it. Like, a lot of the times it doesn't find you. I think some people it does. And I think some people just know, like, they just know it at an early age. I never knew. And then, as I kind of developed myself and then was developed through mentors and stuff, realized that impacting people positively and helping them develop themselves and get better in their lives was something that was super important to me. And doing that with a kid now and having the people in my organization and watching these guys like, transform their lives in a bunch of different ways in my organization. These are dudes that are 45 and 50 and 55 years old. And I'm not even 40 yet. And so to see my like continual chipping away at these guys and building relationships, and then they finally kind of capitulate into this like new thought process, and I think you and I talked about this, like you can't go on a diet and expect it to work, right? You just have to change your lifestyle to be that's how you consume food now, right? And seeing these people kind of change on that, and like I got guys losing weight, I got guys exercising that have never exercised before, I got some guys that had like testosterone problem that are on testosterone replacement now, and these dudes are just like, you can just see like those micro changes adding up, and it's raising our whole organization. And there's nothing to drive you after results harder than getting results. Like when you
Absolutely.
see what's working, you're like, wow, like more,
I think
more.
I think that's the personal renaissance, is when you realize that whatever you apply into your life that works, that gives results, you apply that same kind of approach elsewhere, and it's it, it it lets you bask in the illumination out of the world which can come. It really does. Like you're turning on light in your life everywhere with every little bit of progress you make, and when your friends are doing the same, it ends up being a bright place.
Yeah, absolutely. I've in the last, when you kind of get married and you have kids, obviously your lifestyle changes, right? And so a lot of times when your lifestyle changes, your friends change, right? And so this kind of redevelopment of my friend group over the last 3 or 4 years, and I'm by far not the most successful guy in that group, and that's a great thing, because I think you said this earlier, like if you're the smartest, most successful guy in the room, you need to find a new room.
Yeah.
And so like watching these guys win and close a $2-3 million profit job or something like that, I'm just like, dude, that is kick ass. And it's always funny because the people that have some success and surround themselves with successful people, they're the cheerleaders. And it's the people that are doing the opposite that, if you're not a winner, what are you?
No, whatever you are is what you begat, right? And nothing begats nothing. They say whenever you step on toothpaste, right, you see what comes out, right? And when you're under pressure, you see what comes out.
Yeah.
And you got people that what comes out is growth, and you got people that comes out which is just degradation. And I had a lot of friends that were funny ass drunks over the years that could make you laugh, right? But what is that into? It ends up amounting to nothing. I really am more interested in learning from the others that are doing better than me. And luckily I got some of those guys in my life. So, hey man, so what's next for you personally, and what's next for your Revival?
Yeah. So Revival, we've got, like I said, just got C-Bar open. And we are beginning to look for another location here in Atlanta. We have also an upstairs to Luella, which was the restaurant we opened in December. And we're going to build a private club going up there. And, that's going to be a huge undertaking, and also kind of a new wrinkle to what we do as an organization. We've never done one of those before, but, I think the market is very much primed for that. And our network here in Atlanta in general is very much excited for that opportunity as well. My brother runs our construction company, and he is wide ass open on that. He's really, we do a bunch of civil work, dirt work, and he's got a lot of stuff lined up this year, and so exciting to see that company grow. Like I said, maybe we'll be lucky enough to welcome a new kid into the family, and yeah, it's I think it's just, it's never, it's there's not an end, and I think a lot of people, ask like, what's the end goal? I don't know that there is an end goal, right? And in what I mean by that is like, not that I don't want to, at some point have some type of exit or whatever, but then I'm just going to be doing something else. Right. Like it's, I thoroughly enjoy restaurants. I thoroughly enjoy. I get a kick out of a busy dining room. I get thrilled at watching a server who came on as a a dishwasher or something like that, graduate into this position, go out to this table and crush her spiels and sell this expensive wine, and she comes back, she gets a $500 tip or something like that, and it's just like she's lit up like that. I'm like, like I'm doing what I'm supposed to be doing. Like this is what I'm supposed to be doing, helping people help themselves develop. And the restaurant space is an incredible space to do that. There's
Absolutely.
people from every walk of life and socioeconomic background. And if nothing more, instill them with our value set from our company and show them that if you live with character and integrity, that it does benefit you in the long term, then I've done my job. And so, what's next? Keep growing, get this thing to $100 million and see what the next level is after that.
Yeah, the only constant is change. But hey, man,
Yeah.
I'm glad we had this conversation today. I've got a new business too, another business venture that I've started late in life, and I thought I was going to be a little bit. I thought I was going to be a little bit dissuaded by having all the new business burdens again, but it's not true at all, man. I'm excited as hell now. I'm hungrier than I've ever been, and I really appreciate you transferring some inspiration and enthusiasm. And it's been a pleasure having you on the show, man. I want to check back in with you sometime soon.
Yeah, and vice versa. Would love to, and love see. I mean, I just love seeing people I'm acquainted with, be successful. I think it's the coolest thing. You watch somebody pour themselves into something, and then it blows up, and you're like, my man, good for you. So.
Very cool. Well, thanks for joining us, man. We'll talk at you soon.